I have been asked by a few people if I would comment on the Channel 4 interview, Cathy Newman interviewing Jordan Peterson. So, without further ado, here goes.
You're just
That's
saying these
murderous.
things, though, to provoke, aren't you? I mean,
Not
you
a
are a
bit.
provocateur.
I never said
You're like
anything.
the alt-right that you hate to be compared to.
Who's provoking the public here, Cathy? He says that sexism against women doesn't account for anywhere near the 9% variation in pay between men and women, and you seem almost upset that he would say it, because then, oh my God, people might believe it, and then what would happen, Cathy? What would happen? If the pay gap is mostly due to men and women making choices that work for them based on their own preferences and priorities within a mostly fair system, then there'd be nothing for women to be angry about, would there? There'd be no reason for women to resent men, or feel stirred up and resentful and vindictive, or see men as having taken things away from them. Leading people to believe they are being treated unfairly when they're not is the definition of riling them up, wouldn't you say? So who is trying to rile people up, Cathy? Who here? Who is trying to provoke? Him or you?
Tell us about the lobster.
Well, that's quite a segue. Well, the first chapter I have in my book is called Stand Up Straight with Your Shoulders Back. And it's an injunction to be combative, not least to further your career, let's say, but also to adopt a stance of ready engagement with the world and to reflect that in your posture. And the reason that I write about lobsters is because there's this idea that hierarchical structures are a sociological construct of the Western patriarchy. And that is so untrue that it's almost unbelievable. And I use the lobster as an example because the lobster, we divulged from lobsters in evolutionary history about 350 million years ago, common ancestor. And lobsters exist in hierarchies, and they have a nervous system attuned to the hierarchy. And that nervous system runs on serotonin, just like our nervous systems do. And the nervous system of the lobster and of the human being is so similar that antidepressants work on lobsters. And it's part of my attempt to demonstrate that the idea of hierarchy has absolutely nothing to do with sociocultural construction, which it doesn't.
Let me just get this straight. You're saying that we should organise our societies along the lines of the lobsters?
No, Cathy, no. What he's saying is that you can't blame white Western men, or even men in general, for inventing hierarchy. Hierarchy is an emergent property among social species. It just is, Cathy. It's wired into us, and we're just going to have to contend with it. On the bright side, Cathy, and as Peterson has pointed out innumerable times, there are innumerable iterations of a multitude of games, and our hierarchies are not solely based on physical dominance. A man might be at the bottom of the competence hierarchy in fisticuffs, but he might kick ass in a surgical theater or writing apps for iPhones. A woman might be unattractive or even infertile, but she might be smarter than her peers or more skilled in any number of things and be able to put that to use in terms of achieving success. Human males don't just butt their heads together like bighorn sheep do, Cathy, or go around pinching each other to fight for access to the best lobster pussy. We have managed to turn our biological inheritance, hierarchy, singular, into a massively complex system of flexible and overlapping hierarchies based on such widely varied criteria that they not only allow most men to be successful at something other than physically dominating others, they actually allow women to compete with men for a shot at equal success in nearly all endeavors. And that system of hierarchies, that's responsible for handing you every single thing you take for granted. The product you put in your hair that makes it look like ramen noodles, the lapel mic you're wearing, the studio you're sitting in, and all the technology that it took to put this pathetic, ridiculous excuse of an interview in front of 3.2 million pairs of eyes. And there you sit, in your designer outfit with your hair molded just so and your makeup perfectly applied by a professional, sitting in a studio at your high-power, high-status job, complaining that you, as a woman, have not been given enough by this system. That this insanely intricate and delicate system of distinctly human hierarchies that emerged among us as if through a miracle, and that has carried us from the primordial ooze where lobster males fight each other to disfigurement and death for the right to inseminate a female's eggs. You, Cathy, you complain that this system, it just hasn't done enough for you. We humans are stuck with hierarchy, Cathy, because we're animals and we evolved to thrive on it. It's built into us. And acknowledging that isn't saying we should live like the lobsters, for fuck's sake. And frankly, for someone who is so unbelievably focused on your own ability to acquire status, complaining about the lobsters is a little bit of pot and kettle, don't you think?
Aren't you just whipping people up into a state of anger and
Not at all.
Divisions between men and women?
And what's feminism other than a division between men and women, Cathy? What is it other than a philosophy that declares the interests of men and women to not only be fundamentally separate from one another, but also in conflict and competition with each other? Feminism pits men and women against each other regarding wages, regarding sex, regarding housework, regarding childcare, regarding emotional labor, regarding air conditioning, for crying out loud. Remember, Cathy, you were the one who said when Peterson talked about helping and encouraging men, what's in it for women? It's not Peterson who sees the opposite sex as the opposite team, Cathy. It's you and women like you.
I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like, you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm very glad that I have exercised my freedom of speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
and that is what you should do. But you're exercising your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
Except you haven't sat there and I'm just trying to work that out. I mean,
No, Cathy. You're not trying to work it out. You're not. You know it. I bet you he knows it too. You're not trying to work it out. You know exactly what it is he said. You know exactly what it is that means. What you're trying to do here is figure out a way around it. You're trying to figure out some way to restate his position such that it will make him look like the devil incarnate. Someone who's in favor of people's right to be complete and absolute dickheads without simultaneously denouncing your own right to do everything you have done thus far in this interview. You want to know why men might be more likely to be effective in climbing the hierarchy to positions of power, Cathy? Take a lesson from Jordan Peterson. If he hadn't realized he could use your unbelievably offensive behavior toward him to nail your ass to a wall and win this debate in one fell swoop, he'd never have brought it up. When he did bring it up, he didn't whine, and he didn't play the victim, and he didn't even ask you to stop doing it. All he did was demand that the rules of the game apply to everybody, and you couldn't figure out a way to make those rules apply to him and not you. And so...
Ha, gotcha.
Hey, thanks for watching. As you might imagine, these videos take a ton of work, so if you want to contribute to this channel, please head over to patreon.net/Matthew Drake and become a supporting member. You'll find this and a bunch more links, including the Illustrated Philosophy shop, in the description below. Finally, don't miss our weekly live streams where we talk to experts and fellow content creators right here on Tuesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern. See you next time.